So, Katie, welcome to the House of Visionaries podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Appreciate you making time for a conversation.
No, thank you for making the time. I know how busy you are. So really excited to have you on today. You are the fourth and final member of our Boston Board of Visionaries.
I know you
think
saved the best for last.
we won't tell Mike, Christina, or
No,
Karen.
that's especially to be told to them. I love them all. They're really cool, innovative, progressive thinkers, and it's an honor to be in their company. They challenge me to think differently about things all the time.
Yeah, definitely. We won't tell them, but yeah, best to last, definitely. And for those that don't know, Katie, you've just started a new role as CPO at Rapid7. And I think you're a really authentic leader, which I think is a style that's massively winning in today's world. And you always seem to have so much fun and energy with what you do and in the role that you do. And that's something that I really admire because it's not easy to have so much energy and positivity around your work all the time, which I think is something that's a real is really rare, and I really admire in your style and how you approach your role.
Well, I appreciate that. It's definitely been decades in the making of that journey, but I do think if you can't find fun in what you're doing, what's the point? And for the role that I play, sometimes we show up on people's worst days and sometimes we get to be a part of their very best days. And to do either well with grace and respect, I think is an honor. And so, it's been a really great journey leading me here today. And I'm really excited to be part of the Rapid7 team and culture. It's unparalleled. So it's fun to be beginning a new chapter here as well.
Yeah, amazing. Having known it a little bit and known obviously Christina before you, yeah, I'm very excited for the journey. I think it's a great matchup. So yeah, I'm sure you'll absolutely smash it.
Thanks.
So you're sitting on the Board of Visionaries, supporting the community. But what does being a visionary mean to you, Katie?
So, I think in all of our lives right now, we're all having to be predictive and look a corner ahead, right? Like what's coming at us. I think when you're really trying to be visionary, you're looking two corners ahead, right? So, not what's happening next, but what's happening after what happens next. And I think that there's a little bit of science and art in that because part of that is pattern recognition and some of that comes with lived experience, right? But then there's this huge element that I think is the art of the possible. Like if we sort of take today's constraints and throw them out and imagine where we could be, not where we are today, I think that that's really cool. But I think that to be a visionary, all of that I just described could be, sort of dreaming alone in a room. But to be visionary, you need to galvanize people behind what it is that you're sort of predictively outlaying. And I think that takes a little charisma, takes a lot of curiosity. But I think that in the world that we're living in today, above all else, it requires clarity, right? Of, sort of convincing people to come along with you on that journey and take a little bit of risk of, I think we're going in this direction, and let's try it out together.
Yeah. How are you finding looking two corners out of interest? Like, are you finding it easier, harder? Like, how are you finding that visionary piece right now? Because the world is changing so much all the time. As a leader, like how are you finding that at the moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So definitely what I'm hearing from my people, the people that I, sort of rely on as the humans who challenge me to think differently is that this world is more complex, sometimes more overwhelming than any version that we've lived through in the past. Uh, so I think that like everyone else, I'm finding it difficult to be predictive, but more relevant than ever to be thinking a few steps ahead. Because I think that we're at the precipice of a J curve of intensive change in the working world, in our lived world. And so whatever we can do to, sort of help demystify some of that for people, I think is going to be a value add.
I think it's a really challenging time for lots of leaders to think those two curves ahead, mainly just because I think the amount of noise. There's just so much noise coming from so many angles for leaders to have that clarity to be able to cut through the noise and be like, no, we're going here and we're going to stay on this path. because there's so much noise hitting you every other week that people, it's really easy to shift and change and go, actually, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to do this. Oh, actually, we're going to accelerate that. No, we're not. And like, you just, there's so much macroeconomic noise that goes on right now. It's really difficult to be pinning your kind of like putting your pin in the ground to go, we're going here, and then actually something's changing, you've got to move again. I think it's a really interesting time to be a leader, very challenging, but also so much opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I've been also describing the world as a noisy place lately, and I think it's coming from a lot of different people from a lot of different places. Um, I think having a really accurate bullshit meter has always been helpful in life and as a leader, probably now more than in my lived working experience where, you can only care about so many things. So, being able to sort of like weed through, okay,
Yeah.
that's important, but not relevant here. That's going to be important later, but not today. And being able to do context shifting, I think it's opened up a world in which, really sort of different thinkers, people with neurodiversity might thrive in a different way than they have in the past.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so enough about the future. What about if we go back a little bit? So where did your career start? Like, who was the biggest influence on you growing up?
So I have three older brothers, and I grew up with two wonderful parents. And pretty much across the board, they all chose work that was committed to making the world around them a better place. So I have a brother who's a medical doctor. My parents were therapists, and I think that there was a human centricity in everybody's approach to what they did. And I would say that one of our family values was sort of an insatiable curiosity about people. I think that really influenced me. But I also pretty, quickly weeded out things that I didn't want to do. I knew I didn't want to have a private practice as a therapist like my parents. I knew that I didn't want to go into the life sciences. And even in my early career journey, my first job after college was for an investment bank, and I learned some wonderful practices. But I also learned that I didn't want to be, committed long term to the culture of an investment banking working environment. And so I was really fortunate to sort of pivot to tech early on and decided these were my people and where I wanted to stay. But I would say my parents probably had that most influential shaping part of, challenging me to think about any group of humans and how to elevate their experience.
Yeah, very cool. It's ironic how that actually your role, some days, I don't know, could be wrong with it, your role in the HR and people space, you probably feel like a therapist most of the time. So
Yeah,
dealing with
I
people.
feel like more of a coach than a therapist, hopefully, right? But maybe I'm just in, still, decades long denial about that being a calling.
Amazing, very cool. I didn't know that about you. You didn't know you had three older brothers. Are you competitive? Do you think having older brothers has made you competitive, or are you not competitive? How?
I'm so competitive. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous. Yeah. And I've unfortunately passed that trait on to one of my two daughters. We compete about everything. Like right now, we're on an ongoing competition about startling each other. So, like, we will lie in wait for like 15 minutes in a dark corner to startle the other person and to see who's better at it. But yeah, I played competitive sports. I've always tried to take I think I hold myself to a really high standard and a high bar. That's just been part of who I am and how I've been bred.
yeah,
But yeah, definitely competitive with my siblings too. Like still, when you get us in a room, we all revert to the 11, 12, 14-year-old versions of ourselves and
yeah,
like, race for shotgun. It's
yeah.
stupid, but yeah, it's great.
Love that. I work with some people in Bond, and they've got two, and one's got two older brothers, one's got three older brothers. They're both hyper competitive as well. Great people, but also like really, really competitive. So it's interesting to see. Must be something about having older brothers that makes you really competitive.
Yeah, and I think the thing that changed early on for me was that my own experience of competition was that it's much more fun winning together than winning singularly. So I think I was lucky to like figure that out. There's a huge difference between an elite team athlete and an elite individual athlete, and I'll take an elite team athlete as a future hire, as a friend, as a colleague, any day. Not that there's not a lot to be said for the elite singular athlete, but I find those people tend to eliminate their obstacles at any cost, compromising many things along the way. Whereas somebody who's part of something larger than themselves and in it for other reasons, to me, that's a more noble style of competition. And I think it's really like informed wanting to be a leader within a corporate environment, right? Like it's not about what I'm able to accomplish anymore. My success is, so disproportionately to me determined by the success of the people around me, my peers, the people who report to me. Have I helped them actualize the path that they want for themselves and, done their best work in an energizing and positive way?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I definitely lean towards that myself as well, gravitate towards that. Okay, so you've been in some big roles. So last role was a big role, CPO at another big company, and now CPO of a very well-known company in Boston and globally as well. Those in the community that are getting ready to take the next step, or maybe they're been trying to take that step for a while and they're not quite getting there. What advice would you have them for those people that want that next big step into a CPO role or working in a huge organization? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the world is like filled with all sorts of career advice podcasts and books and seminars. But I would say that the thing that has held most true for me is to figure out who your people are, the people who you would put in your top 5% of interactions and relationships along the way, and then invest disproportionately in those. I think early in my career, I sort of, as I, maybe would move from one role to another, I was so hyper focused on the team that I was with at that point in time that I would sometimes forget about the rear view mirror and forget to cultivate and bring those relationships along. And I think, a couple stops in, I realized the value of sort of pulling those best people with you wherever you can go. So I think investing in those authentic relationships that challenge you, that heighten your self-awareness, that, make you, a more happy and fun person to be around. Like keep those people around you
Yeah,
and feed your soul through those relationships.
yeah. I know you're pretty well connected, and have always invested pretty heavily in your network. I know you're good friends, or certainly connected really well with Carrie and with Christina Coney and a number of people in the House of Visionaries. Actually, your name's a name that lots of people know and have come across over time. Like, how has your philosophy around kind of stay close to those 5%? How has that maybe showed up in your career, or how has that actually like led to development for you, do you think? I know you mentioned you and Christina used to be connected for many, many a year, like way back when. Like, how has that 5% philosophy for you shown up in development or growth for you in your career?
Yeah. So Christina's a great example. She's somebody I met at an event that somebody had said, you should get to know Christina. I think that you two would hit it off. You seem like you have some similar values and enthusiasms. And we did. We clicked off the get-go. We had a standing lunch. It waned, it waxed, but it lasted many years. And I think in having sort of that investment in ongoing relationship development, it opened doors, right? I think that this is why I'm here today, right? Is that I had a trusted friend, peer, colleague, network connection who was able to, give me a very honest situation, scenario, recruitment pitch. And I was able to be my most honest and authentic self because we had, a relationship more than 10 years in the making, even though we had never worked together. Ironically, my husband was paying some outstanding parking tickets this morning. And he's like, this one's yours. And I go, I never get parking tickets. And I was trying to think back. It was from 2019. So it was, 6 years ago. I said, where was that? He said, it's Canal Street, which is literally right outside this window right here. And I said, oh, wow, that's ironic. That was actually my last in-person lunch with Christina before the pandemic. I think I said it was Christina's
Wow.
ticket right there. I was parking and saying hello to her.
And you haven't paid it for 6 years.
I mean, that's his job. He's the parking ticket payer because he gets way more than I do.
Amazing. That's brilliant. But no, I think one thing I've definitely learned, like since the pandemic, is investing in your community and people that bring you energy. And I've seen it show up time and time and time again in people's journeys. And I think yours is a brilliant one of that in terms of the journey to Rapid7 and how your networks helped you get there. And then I know there's lots of great people in the community I see you grabbing lunch with from time to time, and you're like, that's going to be a good conversation happening around that table. You know, it's a conversation that's going to make everyone sharper, new ideas, new energy. I think it's something that you guys are really, really good at. And if one thing I've noticed more recently is everyone started to realize that, like, I got really lazy in building my network and maintaining my network. And now I'm in a world where I kind of need it.
Yeah.
I haven't got it. And I'm really struggling. And people are trying to rebuild their networks, their communities, and like hold on to that top 5% because people are starting to realize again how important I think it is.
Yeah, well, I think that, we're looking at it through the lens of, I assume you might be Gen X like me, right? Of people who were taught to invest in your network, took a step back from it because of world events and are now reinvesting in it. But I also think there's a whole other generations of the workforce that are coming in that have different expectations, network building skills, like a different perception of it and different value of it. And so I'm actually really interested and curious to see how they influence the network and community creation. And so I'm really gravitating towards people who are maybe 5 to 10 years into their career journey to challenge me to think differently about what community means to them, what they need from it, what they're willing to give to it.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. What have you learned from that? Put you on the spot a bit here, but is there any one takeaway from speaking to those people where you've been like, oh wow, these people are thinking totally differently to how we are? You might not. I might put you on the spot a bit, but
yeah, no. I love being put on the spot. I think there are more similarities than differences, is what my observation has been so far. With maybe a little bit more of a willingness to cut through noise faster, back to the noise, right? Like, if you're in a room full of people, I think I see people mentally swiping left, a lot faster than previously, and that might be for better or for worse. I don't have a value judgment on that yet, but I do think that there's a little bit more of a rapidity to how it's happening.
yeah, that's really interesting. I saw something actually the other day and read something, and they were saying about how, like, the next generations coming through, they cut through the noise and they're like much more direct. They'll say things like, "Why are we having this meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there actually any point in doing this? Are we going to get any outcome from it?" Like, they won't just sit in a meeting for the sake of being in a meeting. If they don't think the meeting's useful, they'll be like, "What? Why are we? Is there any point in doing this meeting?" Whereas generations gone by will just sit there because they're in a meeting. So I do think there is something about that more direct cutting through the noise. They're very willing to say what they think. They're a lot more demanding, a lot more expectant, and that's there's challenges and pros and cons to that. Yeah, interesting, really interesting.
Yeah, but something to be learned, right? I think I'm thinking back to like my last week's worth of meetings. If there were any that I should have said, am I needed in this meeting? Right? Like, time is our most valuable thing, right? Like, we're fiercely protecting it and making sure that it's time well spent all the time. Again, to the point of noise and cutting through the bullshit. But yeah, I think it's probably a good thing for me to have in the back of my brain for anywhere I'm spending my time.
Yeah, 100%. Right. So a couple of community questions. Number one, these all came from Carrie, by the way, or a lot of them did. So you can blame her if you don't like them. But which career would you pursue if HR didn't exist?
Oh, so many options. If I could have done anything, thanks for this, Carrie. I love this question. I would have loved to have pursued a life in the theater, but not like silver screen, fame and fortune, more ensemble theater, like live theater, something with an improvisational aspect to it, like, to be part of the cast of Saturday Night Live and make people laugh and think simultaneously. Like, that to me would be a dream. If I could do anything, like, maybe I need to just quit today and, go pursue. I think that is so noble, right? To give people a good laugh, but also to challenge them to think about the world around them. And I love the concept of an ensemble cast that is having to work together on the fly. So not totally
Yeah,
unlike what we do in our working lives.
very cool. That's definitely a different answer to what we've had so far. Did you ever do
Amy
anything when you were younger?
Poehler, Tina Fey, if you're watching this podcast, I'm available for work or a good hang. Either one.
Did you ever do anything when you were younger? Did you do any acting or like theatre or dramatics or not? Or is it just like a
Well, I
dream?
did actually. So, my parents being therapists, they were not raking in the dough, as it turned out. So actually, to help pay the rent, their passion was also theater. So they had met in
Oh,
an
cool.
improvisational theater course. And our family had an improvisational theater troupe that went into schools to use improv to talk through complex social emotional learning issues, which is
Wow.
funny because fast forward, a few decades, I serve on a board here in Boston called Rehearsal for Life that does the same thing. They leverage improvisation to go into the Boston public schools and to talk through complex issues with kids using their engagement through theater and music, which is kind of cool. But I mean, we
Very,
stopped when I was early on. Their private practices, grew and they weren't
yeah.
able to continue to pursue that in parallel. But for a while, I think it was helping to put dinner on the table.
Yeah. Amazing. What a great story, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if this gig doesn't work out, we know we'll see you next. You'll be on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Saturday
Although I hear
night.
it doesn't pay well for the first many, many years. So
And next community question: what's the one HR trend you think is totally overhyped?
well, I don't know if I would say overhyped, but I mean, AI is as hyped as it can get. And I think it's probably justifiably so, right? And I think it might be feeling overhyped right now because people understand that it's going to be big and impactful, but don't quite understand how, right? And how it's going to affect them. Like we always look at it through a personalized lens. Um, so I would say that, that's the thing that you can't start your day and have a coffee without hearing somebody, thinking something about it. But to me, it's not, I think a lot of people are also nervous and scared about it, right? Like, how is this going to impact my life? How is this going to impact my work? Even if I look at my kids are 13 and 11, and the other day I was looking at, jobs most likely to be disrupted and replaced by AI, 20 years down the road. So I can make sure they're, kind of like thinking along the right interests. But I think that to me, it reminds me a little bit of the early days of the tech boom, right? Where there was a lot of innovation, a lot of disruption, and a lot of uncertainty about what that meant for people. And I think that that's turned out very well for us. So I think, remaining open-minded and adaptive to it. Again, that was a J curve of change for people in the workforce. This is going to be an even steeper, even more radical J curve. So really figuring out what do you need to enable yourself to navigate through that complexity. And, what do your leaders need to do to support and enable you through that?
That's a really interesting take on it. Overhyped, but overhyped and
Yes.
justifiable. I think
Yeah.
that's a cool take on it because I think it is overhyped, but justifiably so, and I think that's a really cool way of framing it.
Yeah. Well, and I think
Um,
if I think about hype and something being overhyped, I think to me, it's indicative of, people being overwhelmed by the complexity, the multiplicity, right? It's a little bit like the everything everywhere all at once feeling, right? And so that's the world in which we live, right? Back to that concept of noise. And so, figuring out how to find focus in that, I think is like that's going to be hard and cool.
mm, yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride over the next few years. Let's see how it
Yeah.
all how the AI hype plays through. Okay, so next question: if you could redesign the people function from scratch, what's the one thing you'd throw out, and what would you protect at all costs?
So I am not at all unique or alone in questioning if there's any remaining value in the concept of an annual written review, right? They're like not fun to receive, they're not fun to do, they rarely drive impactful growth. And so, if we could really succeed in pivoting to have people adopt earnest and authentic real time feedback, not just people leaders, but peers too, right? Like I actually think that lateral feedback, peer feedback is the most important that you can hear even more than from your manager. I think that especially these generations coming into the workforce, it's a less hierarchical mindset. And so, helping people to do that well and from a place of well-intentioned growth, positivity for everyone, I think would be really great. If we could take that one thing and like wave a magic wand and have that one thing be so much better, that would be it. I have yet to do it to that great of a success story, but something I've like tried to impact, I think, for a couple decades now.
Yeah, one of one of I suppose he's kind of like a mentor, really, I suppose, but a guy that I know, close family friend who's got his own business. I remember years ago, like this is nearly 10 years ago, speaking to him about how he pays his team and how his business is set up. And he's like, I don't do any bonus, no bonus at all, pay a really, really, really good salary. And I don't do like annual reviews and bonus and targets and stuff like that. I'm like, why not everyone? You need to have people have a bonus and target. He's like, I just can't be bothered with it. I can't be fucked to do I hate it. He's like, I just can't be asked with whatever you offer them. They're never happy enough with it. You give them a bonus or a pay raise, they want more. He's like, I just can't be asked. And I thought he was just like a bit crazy, but maybe he was just way ahead of his time.
Yeah, right.
I think more because he hated doing them than anything else. But he was probably right in what he was saying. It's like, you offer them a bonus, but they probably wanted a bigger bonus. You give them a pay rise, but they probably wanted a better pay rise. You do a review. It might be good, it might be bad, but they'll always expect it to be better than what it was. Like, it's never like a really like fulfilling process for anyone. And he was just like, I can't be bothered. I don't bother doing them.
Yeah. Whereas I think if you can connect with people in a really like sort of genuine and true way and help them to settle their heads, their hearts, and their hands, like so that they know what they should be doing, that they feel energized to be doing it and feel like they are part of something bigger than just themselves, which like an individual bonus doesn't really speak to any of those things except for maybe the hands component, right? But if you can do that, then you're elevating the purpose and the meaning behind what they're doing. You're giving them the why.
Yeah. I think the cycle's too long as well. You wait a whole year to get constructive feedback. It's like people's engagement's going to drop way off. Like they're not getting the feedback they need in the moment to course correct and rectify and improve. It's just like this. Here's some feedback, 12 months. Here's some feedback, 12 months. I think that's a real challenge.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember what I had for dinner 3 days ago, but I can remember the last time that somebody I worked with gave me real-time feedback right after a meeting and said, hey, you know, like that interaction, this is what could have been differently, or this is how it landed for me, right? I remember those instances. Yeah. Those are marking moments for me.
Yeah. How do you think, how you mentioned like you not got there yet, but you probably discussed this with some peers and stuff. What do you think of the, like, are there any things, if you had a magic wand, you could like implement them, you think would help people get there? So take out the annual review and implement a culture of real-time feedback. But have you seen any or heard of any like frameworks that would help people get there? Or anybody, have you seen anyone doing it?
I think more than frameworks, there's stylistic elements to which we have to be unwavering, right? So one of them is creating psychological safety for the people around you. I think the other is authentic and vulnerable leadership, right? There was a time during the pandemic when I was sharing something about like something that was impacting me and how I was showing up for work with my immediate team of direct reports. And I started to cry. And like the 1998 version of me was like, suck it up, shut it down, lock in, be done. But actually, like the amount of empathy that sort of rose up in the room was very moving for me. It allowed me to kind of remove that barrier for myself. And afterwards, a number of my teammates came up and they were like, that actually, like, this is how it impacted me. And this is how now I'm able to kind of, share this aspect of myself, et cetera. And so that was a, sort of a unique time, right? Everybody was in everybody's homes and our children were joining our calls and our dogs were barking. And, it was, I think that was, one of the wonderful aspects of that time is that it allowed us to really pull the veil back if we wanted to. So I'd just say that but those tenets are some that I think I had previously, but that the importance of them and the relevance of them elevated for me in that era that I've tried to carry through now to my today self.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. That's that authentic leadership stuff coming through again, which I love.
Yeah, listen, we all get shit wrong, right? Like, yeah. Tell me when I've got it wrong. I will get it wrong today. I'll try not to get it wrong again tomorrow, but I'm going to get something else wrong tomorrow. But if I can get a little bit better each day, and if I can help those around me get a little bit better each day, then there's something honorable about the work that we're pursuing together.
Yeah, no, I agree. What are you protecting at all costs then? Annual reviews are going. What are we protecting at all costs?
Caring about people's experiences when they come to work, whether they're coming in a hybrid environment, a virtual environment, whatever it might be, that we are, really obsessing about how to elevate that and make that good. And what that means is creating a great culture around them and caring about their engagement. I worked for somebody once who, upon presenting my near-term and long-term strategy on people experience and engagement, his response was, why should I care if people are happy or not at work? And I mean, he was part of the baby boomer generation. And I had a light like popped on for me where I thought, oh, we're not going to work together very long because I care about this. Like, this is, if there's a true north for me, it's that we're cultivating elevated experiences for people so that they're in turn bringing their best work for the betterment of the whole organization. And, I managed to present it in a way that was data driven enough for him to start to care a little bit, which is that, your employees' happiness and experience is pretty directly correlative to your customers' happiness, satisfaction, and experience. And so if you can link those two, then you've got a good business justification for why you should invest in programming that elevates that experience. But I actually don't need any of that shit. I just know that it's the right thing to do, right? That if people are coming to work and, taking themselves away from their passion projects and their family and things that they care about and love about, that we should make it a great experience for them so that they can do their very best work, that we should remove whatever barriers we can remove, that we should, surround them by colleagues who are good people who care about, some of the same goals and objectives, and that we should make it fun.
Yeah, amazing. You spoke about employee engagement there a little bit, and it's something that you're like is the thing you want to protect at all costs. I think we're at risk of like having the least engaged workforce there's ever been, or certainly in like for a few generations, the lowest engaged workforce that there's ever been. I think we're right on the cusp of that. Potentially over the next year to year and a half, if we don't get things right, I think we're going to have incredibly disengaged workforces potentially. And I read something recently that only 20% of employees are fully engaged at work. It's the lowest for 20 years. And I can believe it as well. I can believe the data. What's your thoughts on that? I put you on the spot again a little bit, but like, what's your like hot take on that from what you're seeing? You obviously hold it sacred and you want to like protect it at all costs, but from what you're hearing and seeing from peers and seeing from around places, the lack of engagement, what do you think's driving it? How do you think companies get back to the core? Like, let's have really engaged employees. Are you hearing, seeing, or feeling anything?
Yeah, I think you and I are reading some of the same research and predictive analysis. I'm seeing, I would actually describe it a little bit differently in terms of what I'm experiencing and seeing, which I would say is erratic engagement. I think that there's less consistency to the engagement that people are feeling. And I think that's partially reflective of the world around us, right? On any given day, you're not sure what natural disaster or socioeconomic factors or, other elements are going to come into play. So I think that there's a lot of complexity. And so I think insofar as we can, again, create an environment for people to come to work in where some of the noise is quieted, where there's consistency to the prioritization and the focus, and where they're well and able to do that, I think that's helpful. But I think also it starts with understanding, right? The fundamental thing there is to understanding what people want out of the time that they are spending. And I think that that's what has some more sorting to do right now, is to like really cut through that, and to, if people don't know what that is, to help them figure out their why. That's again back to the everything everywhere all at once feeling. I think that that's what's contributing to people's challenges with regard to consistent positive feelings of engagement at work.
I think the people function's going to be the most important function of every business over the next couple of years. And if there isn't somebody in the business that keeps anchoring everyone back to like, but we're still going to need awesome people that are hyper engaged, no matter what else goes on with technology, AI, anything like. And yes, we're not going to detract from the technology shift because the technology always wins over time. That is guaranteed that AI will win the race over time. But we are still going to need hyper engaged, high performing people alongside AI. And I think some of the messaging from businesses is consistently downsizing AI. We won't need as many humans. They're not going to be as important as they were. Redundancies, these types of messages, they're less human centric. I think they're driving more disengaged workforces, which is then driving what I think will be huge problems for businesses in a year or two when they go, we've moved forward on AI, but our workforce is like asleep and they're not engaged and the performance has dropped off. I think the people function is going to become those people functions that get it right and are like, yeah, we're all in on AI, we're going down here, but we need to make sure we've got at least one eye on a hyper engaged workforce. They're the businesses I think will succeed, not just the ones that go all in on AI. It's like, yeah, we're in, but we've got to keep one eye on the employees and make sure they're feeling engaged and they're coming on the journey with us.
Yeah, and I think part of the challenge is if you're not sure where you're going, like, where's the goalpost, or if it feels like it's moving, then it's really hard to have a consistent map that you're all moving along together, right? And so I think, part of that might be chunking it into smaller, more near-term sizes, right? I think that at least in tech, I think that the 5-year plan is an outdated concept, right? Like, I try to think a quarter at a time and a 1 to 3 years at a time. And I think 3 years is honestly like almost like having a crystal ball, right? Like, I think you're fooling yourself if you think you can really be that, depending on sort of, the type of company that you're with. But I think that that's the challenge of leadership. I think that's the challenge of the people who are coming along with any particular leader on that journey is like, where are we actually going? What is the next meaningful place to get to, and how do we get there together?
It's so interesting. I've seen that we might have exchanged, you might have seen some stuff in one of the chats that were in about this as well, but about the trend of CPOs taking over tech functions as well, which I think is a phenomenal like shift, which I like to think I'm relatively like visionary in terms of like I can see trends, predict things, sometimes more so than maybe some other skills I don't have in my locker. That one completely caught me out. I didn't see that coming like at all as a huge trend that the CTO would report into the CPO and tech would and people would end up overseeing tech as and this is I'm realizing now a huge trend, and done some research, and over the last 2 or 3 weeks another 3 or 4 companies that I know have all made the same shift. I think that's incredibly exciting though for people in terms of not just the engagement piece, like yes we need hyper engaged people, but how do we pair that with technology? If you could get that right under one leader that was the all seeing eye for people and technology to make sure they work in harmony, those that get that right is it's going to be an incredibly powerful thing. I think that's a really exciting trend.
I agree. I think it was about 6 years ago. I was asked to host a session or give a lecture on the future of people experience. And my hypothesis at that time was that there was a three-legged stool, all of equal importance, that needed to work together. And it was the people strategy, human resources function, it was the IT function, and it was the real estate or workplace experience function, right? And that all three of them sort of had this equal weight, but if they could work together to amplify it, then you end up with a better employee experience. So I think I understood that piece of the trend. What I didn't understand or couldn't be predictive of then was the impact of the future of work because of the pandemic's disruption to in-office versus hybrid versus remote working. So if I like take that and pull the thread a little bit further, it's interesting to me to think about a consolidated strategy around how, people and technology come together, or the humans and the robots, or however you want to sort of ideate that. But then also, we can cultivate beautiful workplace experiences. And here at Rapid7, we have a wonderful headquartered office. But is there a future in which the home office is a more meaningful part of an aligned strategy for the people, right? Because I would still stand by that three-legged stool of the do you have the tools that you need, the technologies that you need, the enablement that you need to do your job? Do you have the right people strategy programming to develop you, to foster a growth mindset, et cetera? And then do you have the right environment to be able to do that the best, whether that means an environment of flexibility, an environment to come to that's high, that promotes the right amount of collaboration and community experience. I think thinking about like travel budgets differently for companies where there's a remote workforce, that you're, like not just having a singular kickoff event, but thinking about what's the right cadence and frequency to bring humans together. We're still tribal beings, whether introverted or extroverted. So like, how are you spending that aspect of your budget in the most meaningful way to drive the best collaborative work experience?
Yeah, no, 100%. Okay, I've loved it. feels like a good place to draw to an end. And I just want to say a massive thank you for giving up time to come on. I know you're very busy.
Thank you for
And
asking great questions. It's always good to get out of our house. I would say that's the other piece of advice that I would give to people who may be at different stages of their careers. Get out of your house. We very quickly become, and whether that's your literal house and you're working from home, or whether you're in an office and you are like me, you get very hyper focused on the work that's in front of you and what you're doing. But get out, widen that perspective, open that aperture, look for the people who do it. And you're one of those people who does that for me. So thank you for asking questions that make me think outside of the confines of the walls that I'm occupying today.
yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I spent a long time not doing that. I was very insular. Over the last 5 years, I've completely flipped my mind on it. And I have learned so much in the last 5 years, like from amazing people like yourself and many, 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 many others. I'm very blessed to be in a role where I get to speak to loads of like really cool, very smart people and have some cool chats with them. And yeah, my knowledge and my energy and my passion and enthusiasm for what I do in the profession has just gone through the roof. But you've got to put yourself out there and go and do it. It won't just come to you. You do have to work at it. Like you said, find your top 5% and over index on them, really invest in them, and make sure that you keep those people tight and you speak to them regularly, because they will provide the insight, the energy that keeps you going and keeps you on the journey to keep doing amazing work.
Yeah, I love that. Take a little
Yeah.
risk, start with yes or why not, and dive
See
in,
where it
find
takes
your
you.
people.
Yeah, find your people. Okay, it's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Really interesting. I now know some cool stuff about you as well. I did not know that you want a job in the theatre. I did not know that your parents were therapists, and that could have been a route for you. So it's great to get to know you a little bit better. And thank you so much for giving the time up and supporting the community.
Thank you. It's my honor.